Well, hi there, it's Sandy Allnock with a little special something for my Creating Color this month for MFT. And I want to start off by setting the mood just a little bit. Whether or not you sung along with Edith Piaf and I on La Vie en Rose, you can still enjoy this card without speaking a word of French, but this is going to be my tribute card to her. It's Women's History Month, and she is one of my favorite French women, and this stamp set called Rainy Day Friends seemed perfect for a tribute card for her. It's got the little girl, but it also has some raindrops and puddles that you can use, but it's got an Eiffel Tower in it, and that's what I really wanted to focus on, is making the background. So I've stamped the background Eiffel Tower in a gray color. You can use all different kinds of grays. This is with colored pencils, so it doesn't even matter whether it's a dye ink or a pigment ink. I just wanted something really soft back there. And then I'm going to do the two groupings of trees on either side that are right there on the plaza right by the Eiffel Tower. I am putting reflections straight down, which doesn't actually exist right there beside the Eiffel Tower. We're going to pretend. We're going to just pretend, because I wanted rainy reflections there as if it was sidewalk all the way. I'm adding to the trees on either side a little bit of a very desaturated green. It's a very grayish kind of green. And when I mix them using some Gamsol, it's going to give it just a slight flavor of color when it's really rainy and foggy. And it was one of the days I was in Paris a few years ago. You hardly see color. You see color right in front of you, but everything in the distance goes kind of misty and soft. And that's the look I was going for here. So I'm using a cotton ball with the Gamsol to spread it around. The ones that are up above the horizon line, I use kind of a rounded motion with my hand, and then across the reflections on the bottom, I went back and forth sideways. I'm using a slightly darker, warmer gray for the Eiffel Tower, just to give that a little more oomph, and then a little tiny bit of detail. Not very much, just a few areas where there are openings in the Eiffel Tower itself, and just put a little detail in there. And then adding people is next. Now, people, I know, like, they're really hard for most of us to think about drawing, but I'm just doing a little circle for the heads and a triangle that sort of just flicks downward for the body and the legs. These are off in the distance. They don't need to be very distinct, I guess you could say. So just make a few little marks like this. I've taught this in one of my classes on colored pencil, and it's really not that hard to do. I've seen lots of people do it, so give it a try. For umbrellas, I'm just going to toss a little arc over a bunch of them. Some of them will be sharing an umbrella. Some of them will just be walking without one, hurrying along in the rain. And then just a little stroke down below them is going to serve as a reflection from the people. And I did reaffirm the reflection for the Eiffel Tower, but notice I wasn't trying to draw an exact Eiffel Tower. When you've got reflections going on, the softer everything is, the better. It's just going to be soft and mushy, and it's going to read the right way. So don't worry about that too much. So now for little tiny Edith. This is little baby Edith when she was a little girl. And I started coloring her hair brown, but I realized I wanted it to be more black. Most of the photos of her from her younger years are black and white with this rich black hair. It did look like from some of her photos when she was very, very much older that she had more of a brown hair, but I decided to go for a real strong black because I wanted that contrast. And then coloring some skin tone as well as a little shadow color. And then I wanted to use a blending stump to blend this. Now watch the mistake. I did not test my blending stump, and I had some red that I had used on a previous project, so her face got all red. Well, I could throw the piece of paper out and start all over, but why would I do that when I have skills to continue fixing it? So I did a little more blending on it, and then decided I'd just proceed to blend the hair next, and then go back in with a colored pencil right over top. Now, sometimes if it's a really huge blob of color, you can't really fix that, but this worked well enough because she's underneath the umbrella anyway. It's going to be darker, so that was perfectly fine. And I used one of my fountain pens to give her eyes and a mouth because I wanted to be able to see them really clearly. You can use any kind of a pen that'll write on top of your colored pencils. I've chosen 3 different reds, a light, a medium, and a dark for the dress here. And you don't really have much chance to blend in something tiny like this. It's one of the nice things about colored pencil that you can get into small areas, but it's really hard to get any blending going because there's just not much space to do blending, especially when I'm trying with 3 colors, but I thought I'd give it a try. I wanted to at least separate the left half and the right half where the seam comes down, where the buttons are in her dress. I decided to eliminate the pockets entirely because I'm really basically redrawing this. Her hair would normally be longer than this in the stamped image, but I used a Post-it note and I just cut off that part of her hair so I could draw that in myself. But it does mean I have a little line there that I need to fix. So I was trying to see if just making the dress color over top of it would work. And I did think maybe I needed to do something else. So I am going to add a purse hanging on that shoulder of hers while she's holding the puppy with the other hand. At least I hope that's her hand. It was hard to tell in the stamp which part is which for what, holding her little puppy there. I gave her boots and decided to give her boots with a little bit of a heel because she is Edith Piaf after all. And here is the purse, which, you know, I could just put a black purse in there, put a strap on it, and it'll just cover up something that was there, that little line from her hair that I didn't get stamped quite perfectly. Put a little white button on it, some white highlights on her shoes. And now you can see a little bit better the way that 3 colors work with colored pencils. Generally, I don't tend to use 3 shades when I'm coloring little tiny areas like this. It's just too hard. But I knew I was going to have these larger areas for the umbrella, so decided that I would have 3 colors out anyway, even though I didn't really need them on the dress itself. But they blend really nicely up here in the umbrella portion of it using the Gamsol and the blending stump. And this is a really tiny, tiny blending stump because I've got little tiny, tiny areas. This gray portion, which is, you know, in the white section of the umbrella, I could have tried to clean off enough color from my blending stump, but I decided not to. I just used the cotton ball, staying carefully away from the red so I didn't bleed anything. And then added some highlights with a white pen to make the umbrella look kind of shiny. And the little puppy dog gets a few shadows, just a little bit. Didn't need a whole lot in there. And then added some gray into the umbrella pole. What is that called? The stick on the umbrella, that whatever that thing is called. My mind is not working apparently right now because I can't think of what that would be called. But there you go. So next I'm going to put some shadows under her, some reflections. So right from her 2 feet, it'll be darkest, and then it gets lighter as it goes further away and gets a little bit whiter. Not whiter, but wider. And I'm just kind of letting the shapes be very blurry. And I went over it with the cotton ball just to make sure that I didn't get too specific with it. Just let that kind of be mushy and go across. Went back in to affirm a little bit darker color right there by the boots because that's going to really indicate that it's a good reflection. And then I'm a noodler, so I noodled a few more lines of reflection going across, which starts making it look glassier and glassier. So I'm not going to do the entire thing all the way in the background. I just wanted to do that front portion and go over it with the cotton ball just to soften everything, make sure it's not too harsh. Once I got it on the card, I did the final step because I have done this step early and then tried to adhere it to a card and thought that it was dry and ended up smushing it with my finger or something, but I'm going to use glossy accents to put a whole bunch of clear raindrops all over this. And I'm not going to put it on every square inch, and you'll see in the picture in just a moment that there's just some on there. But I just have it mostly in the area where I've colored. And I did put some right over top of her and right over top of the umbrella because it's going to rain in front of them. So you can see how pretty those raindrops look on my card. So that was a really fun little card to make. And I found myself just playing a bunch of Edith Piaf in the background. I've got several of her albums. Well, I don't have physical albums. I have them digitally. so I could listen to her and be inspired. Tonight, there is going to, as always, be a Facebook Live over on my Facebook. There's details on how you can download this image so you can color along with me. Grab some colored pencils. They're going to be the same colors that I used with this card today. A little fewer of those, but I thought I'd keep the same colorway to make it a little bit easier. And I will see you on Facebook in a couple of hours because it'll be fun. Wear your jammies, and I'll see you there. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.